Right now, we're about 2 months away from the release of the upcoming Disney Snow White movie, and I think people are expecting this one to be a huge dumpster fire, and that could almost be exemplified with the like to dislike ratio on the official trailer from the Disney YouTube channel, where it has 39,000 likes to 991,000 dislikes on this. And it's not as if people are just trying to go after Disney, because we have seen other successes from them in the recent past. Inside Out 2, for instance, was a huge success for them, followed by Moana 2. And then some of their other studios like Deadpool and Wolverine was also a $1 billion success. So people are willing to actually turn out for Disney movies so long as, well, they're just decent movies. And one thing about a lot of those other movies that have been successful in the recent past compared to some of the ones that have been failures is that they weren't trying to push any political message or ideology. They were just trying to be good movies. And in fact, Inside Out 2 was one of those movies that it said that they went out of their way to make sure people couldn't get any political messaging from it in order to try not to alienate some of their potential customers. And that's why I think, or at least some of these reports coming out are saying that Disney executives are looking really closely at Snow White and the potential success or failure of it, because how that does really determines what's going to happen in the future, or at least according to some of these insiders, this is being reported on from that Park Place. Exclusive insider claims Rachel Zegler's Snow White box office could derail REY movie Frozen 3. And it just kind of starts off the article by pointing out that this is an anonymous source, but it's someone from the inside, or at least they're saying there's someone from the inside. They have been reliable in the past, and this is what they're reporting on. So you can take it with a pinch of salt, but there is some other things going on that kind of, I think, lends credibility, or at least it seems reasonable. What this person's saying is probably true. I will get more on that in a moment, but first, let's see what this insider actually has to say about it. A source with an excellent track record has reached out to that Park Place with information regarding Disney projects in development that we believe is tantalizing and worthy of significant consideration. According to our contact, the Walt Disney Company is taking a wait-and-see approach to Frozen 3 and REY movie scripts, with special attention given to how Snow White starring Rachel Zegler performs at the box office in 2025. Despite Moana 2 managing to cross the $1 billion mark worldwide, many feel the film was a cash grab that has harmed the franchise more broadly, especially in regards to its future consumer enthusiasm. If Snow White dramatically underperforms Disney's desire is it could point to a necessary retooling, given the current social political landscape looks nothing like Disney had likely projected when many of these projects were first announced. And that's basically saying when Snow White was first announced, it took them years to develop this thing, as we can see from a lot of the interviews and other things going on in the past. They thought pushing a hardcore feminist message was going to be something that was marketable for them, and we've come to find out in other recent movies that that really wasn't the case. Allegedly, they went behind the scenes and tried to shift things around as much as they can in order to try to make it seem more appealing. But for movies like this, when the ball's already rolling, there's only so much you can do to try to change course. Other movies, like I previously mentioned with Inside Out 2 and then the Pixar series Win or Lose, they deliberately went behind the scenes in order to change some of the political messaging or take out some of the messaging in that, in order to not risk alienate people, because for some of those animation ones, it's a lot easier for them to do those last minute changes versus what apparently they're supposed to be doing with Snow White. And the reason why they're taking kind of a wait and see approach to this one, because if it is successful, then maybe they don't have to worry about removing those messaging, or they don't have to worry about what they're going to be doing with Frozen 3 and the REY movie, because, well, supposedly they're early on in the production. So if that kind of messaging doesn't resonate with audiences, then it's not too late for them to actually change what they want to do. According to our source, both the REY movie and Frozen 3 could see significant script alterations depending on how Snow White performs. If Rachel Zegler live action remake does poorly, it could signal that the era of the girl boss on silver screens is rapidly coming to an end. Disney doesn't want to be caught in the future they believe would happen, but never came to be, according to our contact, the former head of Disney Animation Disney Animation, Jennifer Lee, who stepped down to solely take on the director role of Frozen 3 and 4. Maybe a sticky situation. Lee is known for being a staunch progressive and supporter of the alphabet movement. However, Disney has taken a more public view that they will avoid such issues in children's content moving forward. And that is something that we have seen them do, like I said, in the recent past, because they understand that that's not really helping their company if they're trying to market something to families who don't really want that sort of thing. And some people might push back on the narrative saying like the era of the girl boss may be over when they point out like, well, look at Inside Out 2, or previously mentioned in this article, Moana 2. Those movies were successful and those had strong female leads, but there's a difference between having a strong female lead or having a female centric movie versus having a girl boss movie. Apparently Snow White is having one of the girl boss movies. And usually the difference is kind of like in general terms, a girl boss movie is one where they're denigrating men. Inside Out 2 and Moana 2 didn't really have that to it. And that's why people didn't see those movies as necessarily being political. Even if they felt Moana 2 was more of a cash grab, it still was an enjoyable movie for most audiences, which is why the movie ended up grossing over $1 billion globally. Now, obviously, Snow White is something that they had been working on for a while, so they can't really change the whole story just on a whim, especially if it's so baked into it. They're just going to have to see if this can still be viable. Frozen 3 in the REY movie, like they said, Jennifer Lee is a progressive, so she wants to have that messaging within her movie. We all know Kathleen Kennedy is the same way when it comes to the REY movie, so she wants to have that political messaging in it. And right now there's probably a struggle at some of the upper echelons of Disney and those creatives right there, because the upper levels of Disney might want to get rid of this messaging, but they might be holding out trying to make the argument that no, this sort of thing is still viable for audiences, or there's still an audience for it. So maybe they're just taking Snow White as kind of a test, so to speak, to see like, okay, if this movie is successful with this type of messaging, then maybe we'll let you do your movie how you want to do it, with complete with all your messaging in it. But if Snow White is a huge failure for you, well, then maybe you have to kind of come to the negotiating table on what messaging you want to actually put in your movie, because it might not be commercially viable for Disney as a company to do that. Meanwhile, the REY movie is undergoing a totally new script creation by the fourth writer to be assigned to the project. REY is often seen as as being a very bland character with little fan support, because the character is written as the ultimate girl boss, an archetype of the far left in which the female protagonist has no flaw whatsoever, no character development, and thus is unrelatable. Snow White has racked up record-breaking percentages of dislikes with its back-to-back trailers on YouTube. It could potentially, ported poorly for its box office projections. If audiences disdain reaches a fever pitch for the film, don't be surprised if Frozen 3 and REY suddenly take a very different approach than what has been anticipated before. After all, even Disney doesn't like to lose billions of dollars. That's especially true when it might harm their modern message, which appears to be on life support. So all this thing is coming from an anonymous source saying that Disney is just taking a wait and see approach to the success of Snow White before they move forward with these other movies. I talked about in the recent past how REY got a new writer for it because they don't know what they're doing. Supposedly Frozen 3 and 4, they're not super far along with those movies either. So I guess we'll have to wait and see whether or not this transpires. But like I said earlier, this kind of seems to mesh up with what we've seen Disney do in the recent past, where they're trying to shift course from being overtly political with the messaging in their products to trying to at least tone it down a little bit so as not to alienate audiences, because they realize they need people to actually pay to see their movies if they want to continue to make movies. And if they're just losing hundreds of millions of dollars on a project, well, then they really can't sustain themselves for long doing that. So they have to do something. And to me, this seems like it could be kind of reasonable, but let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Do you think Snow White is really that important for them and they are using this as kind of their litmus test? Or do you think this is just rumors and there's no merit to it whatsoever? And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.